The Village of Seward respectfully acknowledges the land that we are gathered on, the unceded territory of the Comox First Nations, the traditional keepers of this land. We're going to call the meeting to order. Introduction of late items. We have the mayor's report, which will fall under mayor's report under number 9. Do we have agendas for in the basket there for it? There we go. Perfect. Okay, so approval of agenda. Is everybody good with the, sorry?
Yeah, flood risk assessment.
Oh, sorry. And the other introduction of late items is the flood risk assessment. And we will move that to correspondence. Thank you very much. So that'll be C under correspondence. Approval of agendas. Everybody good with the agenda?
Yes.
You're good, Tom? I mean,
Yes.
Councillor Tinsley?
Yes.
Sorry, keep this professional. Thank you. Minutes of previous meeting, recommended resolution that the minutes of the regular council meeting that was held on September 6, 2022 be adopted. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
That's good because there's only 2 of you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried. Petitions and delegations, we have none. Correspondence. Move from A to C. Does anybody need anything pulled? We're going to pull C, correct? CO, you're going to talk about C and B.
And I'd like to pull A.
Okay, well, there we go. We'll pull all correspondence. So we will start with A, please. Councillor Tinsley?
I thought it was a very good description of a good program and a good process to promote a circular economy. And I thought it would be reasonable that we could pass the motion that they've described here. That's my thought.
That's it?
Well, most
Okay,
of
Councillor Pulse.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead, Councillor Tinsley.
No, most of it's explained in the communication, the email, and the declaration of Circular Economy Month.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's the resolution. Okay, recommended resolution from Councillor Tinsley is that we commit to waste reduction, resource conservation, and community education for sustainable living. We recognize that losing waste to disposal as litter is local and global threats to our environment. We take action to reduce our waste and support circular economy. Do I have a motion, please? Second?
I'll second that.
Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none. Motion's carried. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to move on to B. We're going to talk about chickens and not my favorite chicken, which is fried, but sorry, that was inappropriate, wasn't it? Yeah, sorry. I like fried chicken. What can I tell you? Okay. Council?
Sorry, I just had a little thing to add there, which was that this has already been. Am I on? Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, right, okay. The council's already passed the resolution. I think it was May 2022, to basically ask staff to look into it. So just so you know, you've received this petition, but it's already in the work plan.
Anybody want to add to that?
Could I speak just for a sec?
Councillor Tinsley, go ahead.
I just wanted to add in the letter here and just for help for staff as they're exploring. I found it interesting to see that one of the writers mentioned that certain communities regulation-wise have various requirements relative to cubic area per chicken, where a feed is stored and things like that. So that's quite interesting to see the different possibilities for ensuring that if it does move forward, that it, you know, it's a manner that that everyone could be happy with. So just wanted to bring that forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Paulson, do you have anything to add?
I agree with Councillor Tinsley. I think we need to establish some guidelines for having chickens in the village, around numbers and what their buildings are, what size they are, and how they're restricted, and also a way to document who actually has chickens. So are we going to have a plan where people that want to have chickens will register, just like with dogs? You have to buy a dog tag every year. So
I think you're on the right track there, because I think if we had something almost like a permit, like you do for canines, I mean, at a marginal fee, then it gives us the ability to regulate it, make sure that if they do have them, they're adhering to the bylaws with them. It's clean. It's not a nuisance to the neighbor. If we go ahead with something like that, I think that's a good way to go about it.
I'd like to suggest that we have staff look a little deeper into what sort of regulations and guidelines and rules that we need to establish. Like, you know, you just can't go out and get a cardboard box and store your chickens outside in the cardboard box. I've actually been in a house in Sayward where there have been more than 15 chickens in the basement. So, so I think it does need to be regulated. Otherwise, it can easily get right out of hand.
Well, it is something that, in terms of our bylaw, and a bylaw officer, whomever that may be, would have to have the ability to go check on it unannounced to make sure that the rules are being adhered to. I mean, they brought a petition. Quite frankly, when you look at the amount of people that live here in Sayward, the petition with the amount of signatures to me is fairly weak. That is not overwhelming support by any means when you're looking at, you know, around 20 to 25 people out of 141 homes and over 330 people.
I think that's a good thing.
Well, no, it's not. I'm not talking about people that want chickens.
Yeah.
I'm talking about people that actually are in support of the idea. I don't see a lot of support for it.
No.
I don't. Councillor Tinsley, what's your thoughts on that?
I think the numbers, you know, when you do those numbers, it works out to about a 5 to 7% who signed the petition. The petition, I think, was sort of advertised on a stand-up board in the front of someone's house. I remember seeing it on one of the roads. So I'm sure how much it was promoted as something, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a full survey of the community or anything like that.
Okay, so we're going to make a resolution that staff come back with more detail on how we can actually regulate it. Is that correct, Councillor Paulson? That's what you're looking for?
That's what I would suggest.
Right, I agree with that suggestion. CAO?
If I may, I believe you've already done that. I mean, certainly, I believe you've already done that. And looking at that resolution, you've asked staff to investigate it, and I've already done a little bit of investigation, and yeah, it's a fairly complex issue. It includes things like regulating the size of the chicken coop, and also the number, and by permit, you can only have chickens by permit. And generally you don't have roosters because they're very, very noisy. So yes, I believe that you'll see in any kind of modern bylaw, you're going to see all the things you've already talked about. But you want to add to it?
Can we see that at a relatively soon council meeting? Like we could leave that till the November council meeting if everybody agrees. Not by the 4th. Say the last council meeting in November.
what I can do is I can certainly research a number of the other municipal bylaws, like get 3 or 4 of them as an example. And bring that back to council for
Sure.
review. Then you can pick and choose the kind of the things you want to see in there. I'm looking at the Cumberland one. This was done about 5 or 6 years ago. It's not a simple thing. There's a lot of things that have to be tweaked in terms of bylaws, and there's a lot of considerations.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I think I certainly can do that. I can get a report
Okay.
together and
Because it's too late to put on the ballot, right?
But
If,
I think it's a project that's gonna take a while and we just get the ball rolling and then take a look at it. And then it'll depend, what those samples look like and our thoughts on it as to whether it moves forward in the next council, in terms of moving it forward or not moving it forward or doing a full survey or that type of thing.
Okay. So since we already have a resolution to do that, we're just going to move on.
Yeah.
I suggest November. Mention that part.
Oh, I'm sorry. We are going to suggest we're going to move on until the last council meeting in November to where staff will present bylaws from other municipalities and their suggestions on how we move forward.
Yes.
Okey doke.
Mhm.
Okay, and now for the late item C. CEO. Flood,
Oh, yes.
sorry, it's good.
Got that handout on that. Just a couple days ago. Received this a couple days ago, and I thought council would like to have an update on it. If I may, for Councillor Tinsley, it's basically just, I'm okay, yeah.
Yep.
A letter from UBCM stating that we've met the conditions of the risk assessment for flood mapping, and the final payment of $75,000 will be issued shortly.
Excellent.
Sorry, $74,980.
Mhm.
So it just brings to a conclusion that particular process.
Which gives us 100% of the grant.
Yep.
So that's excellent. Thank you to staff
Yes.
and UBCM.
Right.
Okay, so recommended resolution that correspondence from A to C be received for information and discussion. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried. Council reports. Anyone? None. Reports of committees? None. Oh, sorry. Councillor Paulson?
I would just like to report that last week I forwarded to the office a report from the Hospital Society saying that they were going to increase the yearly stipend for all of the clinics in Strathcona Regional District from $5,000 to $10,000 a year. And so they hope that the $10,000 will be forthcoming before the end of the year for this year. But if all of it can't be done by then they will be increasing it in the budget for 2023. And that we've also added 4 more clinics in the northern area. So that's a total of 10 clinics that will be subsidized with $10,000 a year for capital expenses.
That's excellent. What kind of restrictions are on that 10,000?
It's to be used for capital investment. And that's pretty flexible. It can be toilet paper, paper towels, whatever they need to, equipment, or if they need new equipment or
How much does it cost for an MRI machine? Very close.
I think they'd have to save up a few years.
A few $10,000 bills, yeah.
So I just wanted to report that, and it is posted on the website. on the Sayward Village website.
Thank you. CAO?
Sorry, it's been a few years. It's been a few years. Did that money come to us? The $10,000 RHD grant,
Or does it go to directly to the clinic?
directly to clinic?
Okay. Do you have any concerns about that, CAO?
No.
Okay. Mayor's report. As you know, I went to UBCM last week. It was, yeah, it was a little tiring. It is something that you do from early in the morning to, I mean, for some to an ungodly hour, but not so much for myself. But I had the opportunity to go to some meetings. The one meeting that I had with Minister Bear, that was myself and 8 others, which is her and her staff. And we had a good discussion. Yeah, I was the only one on my side of the board table. It's almost like I was being disciplined by a board. But anyways, we had a very good discussion. They are looking into what it's going to take to get cell coverage from Campbell River to Port Hardy. The push is on there. Also to get cell coverage from Campbell River to Tassus as well. The connectivity grant that was issued by the federal government in conjunction with the provincial government was 830 million, but that's strictly for internet. There is no deviating from that. We cannot get any monies like the 30 million that it would cost roughly to run cell coverage from here to Port Hardy. So we're hoping with Minister Bear and the support from her staff, which seemed extremely encouraging. Also, MLA Babchuk is joining in on the fight, and she's going to be advocating for the government to come out with some kind of programs provincially and hopefully federally as well to ensure that our communities end up with full cell coverage. So, which is excellent, because the biggest concerns that I brought to her was the question of safety. What happens when there's a 911 call, when somebody goes to the gas station, calls 911, the accident's 30 minutes away. 911 generally gets, or pardon me, the fire department is sent to the gas station because they go to where the call was originated, have to find out where the accident is, and we have no golden hour. None. So also we talked about tourism, and there were some young people on her side of the table that understood that brochures are generally part of the past and tourism is done through your cell phone. So that was a good meeting. I attended a very interesting meeting with connectivity readiness. And in that meeting was roughly about 7 people from connectivity, or pardon me, IPs. So you had TELUS, you had Rogers, you had City West, and a few others. Some of them were making comments. For example, TELUS made a comment that the 50-10, which is the minimal that we should be having, so it's not the whole village, it's really a block that happens to in most communities. It's generally not the whole thing. When there was time for the questions, I came up and I said, that is not true. It is for the whole village. It is not a block, and many other communities. I also questioned the vice president of connectivity, wherever he was. I also questioned him on the fact that how do we go from being underserved on a Thursday to be fully served on a Monday after City West puts in their application for connectivity? So I asked him that. He, for some reason, did not have a good answer. I also stated that I don't believe that the CRTC is handling this correctly, and they should not have the telecoms actually input their own data. And that is part of the problem. You should have an independent body that actually regulates that. So there can't be a mistake, we'll call it. There can't be a mistake made. So I made it very clear to him that it cost us $24 million in grants. Basically, they put in the wrong information, which I believed was intentional, and there are reports to back that doc. So I don't believe TELUS is going to be spending Christmas with me this year, but quite frankly, they had to be stood up. And in that meeting was 2 ministers as well as MLA Babchuk was also in that meeting. I also had a meeting with Minister Dix, the health minister, and we were talking, one of the seminars that he did was on seniors aging in place. One of the problems that we have here, and we found out personally what happened when my wife was in the hospital last month for 5 days, is Campbell River has a 96 bed capacity. At that time when my wife was there was 136 patients. Over 30 of those were long-term care seniors, and the rest, and there was about, I guess, 15 to 20 that were addiction issues. So acute beds were at a premium and people were in the hallways because of those two issues, because there's no long-term care facility or proper facilities for addiction. I suggested to Minister Dix that he gives me $10 million and we will build a long-term care facility so people can age in place and go from their home directly into long-term. They're not losing their family or friends and going into a new community where they have no idea, they don't know anybody. I find it absolutely appalling what we do to our seniors. We have a gentleman here, his wife was sent to Port Alberni. And he can afford the gas, he goes and sees her when he can afford the gas, but something generally has to suffer in that case. So I think it's completely ridiculous that we are in 2022 and this is what we have. Now, also you look at all us baby boomers in 10 to 15 years, where do we go? Ontario just adopted where they're going to charge seniors $400 a day at their hospitals, $400 a day, if they do not want to be relocated to a care facility in the urban settings, 70 kilometers away, and in the rural areas, 150 kilometers a day. So picture some close to 90-year-old spouse trying to drive over 300 kilometers a day to go visit their spouse. It's very sad. For some reason, I haven't seen a check in the mail from Minister Dix yet. It's early. It's only been since last week, but we're going to keep pushing it. Now, Campbell River is opening up 153 beds, which is going to take some burden off, from what I was told. By the look on Councillor Paulson's face, that may not be completely accurate, but this is what I was told the Campbell River is doing. But there's still no addiction facilities, and it's still going to tie up acute beds. So that was, I mean, some of the other meetings we're listening to resolutions and so on and so forth. Iced tea is one resolution, which is an excellent resolution. The motion was to have iced tea be led by First Nations and local government and funded by the provincial government. One of the problems that we have with iced tea right now is when they get to the point where they run out of money, they need more. Also, the fact that it's generally only 50%. Some of us smaller communities cannot afford 50% of a grant. We need more. So other than that, met a lot of people. There was regretfully a lot of people, a lot of mayors and some councillors that are not returning next year. We'll see what happens with the ministers that we did make connections with. I believe they should still be okay for another year or two. Premier Horgan did speak at a couple of the functions that I was at, and regretfully he is leaving, which I'm not sure who's going to take a spot or whether or not they're going to have the same kind of charisma as Premier Horgan has. But that's the long and the short of it, which obviously was long. So that's the mayor's report. Unfinished business. None. Staff report. Orientation of new council. CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So staff put together this report just to give you an idea of some of the things that we're thinking about going into a council orientation binder. These binders are supposed to represent the main issues that you would be dealing with on a weekly, daily, monthly basis. So I've laid them out here, the procedural bylaw, so you have that handy. A code of conduct, strategic plan, well, you can read it yourself, but the main issue here is that you have that information available to you. You don't have to go searching for it. My first question is, have we hit on all the major documents, or are there things that you want to see included in this binder? Now, keep in mind, it's not supposed to be a catch-all. It's supposed to be catch the important stuff.
Councillor Tinsley? We'll start with you. Anything else we should add?
Sorry, I was on mute. I think it's excellent what you've got there. I don't have anything to add to that. I think that's an excellent selection.
Thank you. Councillor Paulson?
I'm just looking at the list and I wonder where the Local Government Act, would that be included?
The local
You have
government,
to, sorry, Councillor Paulson, can you turn off your microphone? Thank you.
the local government act is in my office. You don't want that included. It's like, sorry, I don't recommend getting the local government act.
There was another book that we got with our last orientation on, I can't remember what it's called. It out, that's where the in-camera information is on.
Please, thank you.
Yes, we'll get you some information on that, but it's kind of vague. The last bullet there is reference material on legal issues. That would include things like the in-camera, but there's also the conflict of interest. There's a bunch of other things included in there. I've got two fairly large documents. One is produced by one of our legal firms. When I say our, I mean the province of BC, and it's quite a good document. It covers a whole bunch of different legal issues, including, in camera and conflict of interest. So that's sort of the catch-all one where you'll find that it has a wide range of legal and other issues. I sort of, if I may just continue, that is certainly one part of it, what's included in the binder, but I think what's equally important is the comments that staff have put in here about the LGLA session on February 15, 16, 17. Highly recommend that for two reasons. Not only it is a learning exercise for getting a wide range of local government issues, but, and you've mentioned this, the other thing is networking. You get to meet a lot of new and returning councillors and mayors, and to be able to compare notes and make friends and acquaintances, that's really helpful. So there is that part. And then, of course, moving on, the other things are a recommendation not to do the strategic plan right away, but to give yourself a chance to get into a bit of a learning that first 6 months, learning a little bit more, making that relationship with council, and then getting into the strategic plan for spring of 2023.
Agreed. The only other thing that I think might be handy in there is the new remuneration bylaw. Big remuneration bylaw into there, because it also explains how you get paid, when you don't get paid, because we've changed that. Sorry, yeah,
So we'll have to pass it first.
correct. But then I think it should be added. Everybody agree? Councillor Tinsley?
Yes, I would agree. If we get it passed here, then it should be added.
Thank you. I also mentioned that I would like to see a dress code also included in that. And I'm not sure if that falls under code of conduct. I believe it does. Yeah. Just to do an amendment on the bylaw for dress code. Okay, so we'll do that later. Sorry. Yeah, one of the ministers mentioned that Saanich had the best code of conduct that they've seen. Now, which is great. We're going to take a look at that. The only question that I had for him, and it was sort of avoided, but was when you have a code of conduct from the municipality, I don't believe it supersedes the Local Government Act. Am I not correct?
I would say in general, you're correct. The Local Government Act would take precedence unless the power is given to you by the Local Government Act. So for instance, the Local Government Act gives you the power to set a procedural bylaw.
Mhm.
You get to set that particular bylaw. So if you're talking, are you talking about specifically dress code?
No, no, but that would be added. So let's use that as an example, specifically dress code. Nothing states in the Local Government Act anything regarding dress code. So we put it in our procedural bylaw or in our code of conduct. If somebody doesn't adhere to it, does the chair at that point have the authority to make that change?
You can require a code of conduct, and in that code of conduct, you can have a dress code. The question is then what do you do to enforce it?
Correct. Tell them to leave.
And then they'll say, no, I'm not going to leave. I'm thinking out loud here. I think we probably have to look into that to see if someone came dressed inappropriately, exactly what council could do about it by way of forcing that person to either leave the meeting or some other way of enforcing it. I'd have to check that.
Because quite frankly, unless there's a way to enforce, then it's just words on paper.
Can I
One
just
of the
add some-
things, sorry.
Go ahead, Councillor Tinsley.
Oh, sorry, I just wanted to add, possibly it's covered in the code of conduct. There is a part, it's about acting in a professional manner, or, and that includes dress and everything. So it might already be in there, but it's a question of how you hold the person accountable if they're not following that, and opinions on what is appropriate and what is not, right?
So, correct. Now, if we put in the code of conduct that it is a minimum of business dress, to us, which excludes t-shirts, baseball caps, that kind of stuff, right? But business dress. Go ahead, CAO.
We're not just talking about dress, anything in that code of conduct. A councillor or the mayor could go contrary to it, in which case you're
Correct.
talking about anything within there.
And what's the enforcement?
One of the building blocks of getting a council to work together is to have that meeting where you're discussing things like this, the code of conduct. And part of it is to get every one of those members of council to sign off on it. So they all sign the same thing. They all understand this is what's to be done. And I would say that it would take a very unusual person then to go against something they've signed for it. Is it impossible? No, it's not.
No, it's
But-
not.
But once they've agreed to it and signed it, that's pretty good enforcement.
Which also brings the fact, should we have that document also signed on inauguration day? At the same time, they have it prior to, they have the ability to read it, understand it, or do we have a cow? Or chicken? No, but do we have a cow and where we go over it line by line, detail by detail? CAO?
I get the sense that council wants to make this a really important cornerstone.
Council may not, but I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then my opinion is that you save it for a meeting and you discuss it openly so that everybody understands what's in it and you get concurrence around the table one by one and sign off on it. But I think that's got a little bit more weight to it than simply signing it on the day that you show up. They may have had it beforehand, but I think what's more important is the discussion that goes with it. When you go around a table, council, and you're all saying the same thing, I think that adds a lot of weight to the code of conduct.
Okay. Councillor Paulson?
To me, I think it's like signing form about confidentiality. And I think everybody has to, each person that's signing it has to understand what is involved in that confidentiality that you sign, specifically related to municipal government and the rules around confidentiality. And I think this training and orientation coming up in February is an excellent opportunity to review all of those issues of being on council. And unfortunately, when Councillor Tinsley and Mayor Baker and I were elected in a by-election, there was no orientation or training. We just sort of hit the ground running and learned as we went along, or didn't, and found out the hard way how things went. So I hope if I get re-elected, that every one of the people that are elected has is compelled to go to this orientation, because I think it's the cornerstone of what municipal governance is all about. And it's not just how we act in Sayward, but it's how all municipalities are supposed to act. So,
But also, we don't want to wait 4 months to go over a code of conduct, right? We want to do that shortly after the election and perhaps have a cow. So the question is, do we have a cow going over a cow is committee of the whole, just in case somebody may not understand what a cow is. Do we have a committee of the whole meeting? Obviously prior to February, because that's quite a distance, or do we have people signing the code of conduct on inauguration day? Councillor Tinsley, what's your thought?
I think it's something that the dress code, to add that into the code of conduct and having it available to who's ever elected or re-elected as soon as possible, once they're not, and then at the first meeting, per what the CAO was describing, to go over that, just briefly highlight it and share the thoughts on it. And then have everyone sign off on it individually. I think that's the best way to go, the easiest way, as opposed to having a separate meeting. I think it also gives the public a sense of the dynamics of it as well. And I can't imagine anyone having any problem with the standards that I believe we're all talking about.
Okay, so when we present that on inauguration and we have the newly elected sign in front of the public, I think there's a little more accountability. Personally.
Yeah. Yes.
Councillor Paulson, what's your thoughts?
I do think that's a good idea. And I think if we look at the election forms, you do agree when you sign up as a candidate to follow the rules of government, and you don't just sign up for the fun of it and you're committed.
But not everybody follows those rules,
I know.
as we know.
Mm-hmm. So I think signing a code of conduct at inauguration is one thing, and I think also having it, if there's not a separate meeting to go over it, then to have a focus on that at the meetings in February.
Yeah. I agree. Doubling up, there's no harm on that. CAO?
It's kind of interesting because I'm looking at this report and I'm thinking to myself, the idea was to get your thoughts on what we should include in the binder, and that's good. But what I didn't include here is that our intention wasn't to say, here's the binder, the 4 inches of paper. The intention was to sit down with council and go through the binder and give at least overview explanations of what each one of the documents are. So I think the idea of I'm not going to say it. I was going to say chicken of the whole committee of the whole meeting is a good one for us to, then we can do that fairly soon after, the inaugural meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And we can go through each one of these things and just alert you to the main points in them. and at least give you a starting point on it. And that's when that debate on the code of conduct can come up in more detail, with you leading the
Okay.
discussion, of course.
However, I agree, and we should do the cow. You don't have to do that for my mic, just to let you know. But I also would like council to, I don't know if we need a resolution for this or what, to have at inauguration, them sign a code of conduct for everybody who's re-elected or elected. Council agree?
So the current code of conduct,
and the
actually, I
count.
think was expanded, right? Yeah. Like they're
Yes.
signing off on, yeah, sure, that's,
Yep.
I can see that as being an issue.
Do we need a resolution for that? CO?
Sure, get it on the work
Steve?
plan
Yeah, okay.
for the inaugural meeting.
So a resolution for the inaugural meeting that would be date to follow on that meeting. Sorry, November 1st. Thank you. November 1st, 2022, that the code of conduct be included in the documentation signed by all new elected officials. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Second?
I'll second that.
That's why I have this discussion. CAO,
All elected, not new. Elected.
sorry, all elected. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Hearing none, carried. Okay, now to the meet. That was the orientation, so recommended resolution, the council receive, discuss, and provide staff with direction on the council orientation 2022-2023 meeting scheduled report. Sorry, did you want to say something? So you reach? No, okay. And the council, or pardon me, the council directs staff to make reservations when available for elected officials. Workshop planned for Nanaimo, February 15th through 17th, 2023 at the Vancouver Island Conference Center. And that council recommend the new council that they plan for relationship building and SP process for early spring 2023, and SP stands for? Thank you. Strategic planning for everybody that doesn't know, and that October 18th meeting be canceled. And that finally, I'm sorry, why are we canceling the one on the 18th?
Because it's,
So you figure that's too soon? That'd be an issue then. Okay. We don't want the inaugural meeting on the 18th? Who wrote that? Okay.
Who passed it?
Who passed it? Okay, that October 18th council meeting be canceled. And finally, that staff be directed to procure the services of a facilitator for the relationship building and the SP process. Okay, so after all that, do we have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second it.
discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried. Sorry, CAO?
Does council have any facilitators that they've seen, had worked with in the past they'd like us to pursue?
There is a couple here in town that actually have a business that does that. Dean and Deborah Russo. No, I may not have said that correctly. I did, thank you. I think we should contact them and see what they. Everybody agree?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. B, Sayward Futures, Sayward Folk, music proposal. Go ahead, sir. CAO. I'm sorry, John France, acting CAO, verbal.
Yes, as you well know, we met with them this afternoon. Mr. Sampson and Mr. McRae will have a report for the October 4th meeting. We think we have come to an agreement on terms. We just have to put it to paper and get it before council.
Thank you. Okay, so do we really want to say anything more about that? No, it'll come out in the report. Yeah. So again, the Savored Future, Savored Folk music proposal. Got the journal. Okay, so we don't need a resolution on that. New accessibility requirements. CAO.
I believe the report is all it's, we've got new accessibility things coming out. We have to put a process in place and we're going to get some help on that. And I think Lisa's already signed us up for
Accessibility to what?
all our buildings.
All of them? Okay,
Well, maybe not all of them, but yeah, where the public has access to.
and this is 100% grant? Grants?
That's an interesting comment. I think initially you're just doing the plan. And you're right, probably money is going to have to come out of that, but I haven't read that far into the process.
Okay, if money does have to come out, we could take a look at the grant availability to make up the shortfalls like the Rick Hansen and so on and so forth. Okay, so recommended resolution that council receive and discuss the new accessibility requirements, and the council direct staff to bring back a report on how to fulfill the requirements of the act. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Second,
Well, I'll second it.
all in favor? Opposed? Hearing none, carried. D, the Kelsey Center schedule, Michelle Davis, rec manager, CAO/CFO, Lisa Clark. CO/CFO, Lisa Clark. Did you like to speak to that, CAO?
I'm going to ask Lisa if she wants to speak to it.
I'm seeing a head shaking no.
Yeah, I'm not the only one. Yeah, I think the idea is that, I shouldn't say I think, the idea is that the rec manager feels that there's an opportunity here to reach more people if it's open on Saturday, people with the weekend off, and so is making this proposal. But we want to make sure that it's going hand in hand in some way of measuring it to see if it's being used and accepted by Valley and village residents. And I want to further go on that topic is that we want to look at stats, not more than just what we're about to get into, but we're going to go back several years so we can get an idea of what programs are working. I mean, the whole idea behind measuring is a way of getting to something that's successful, hopefully. And the other big thing on that is that as we are aware, well, sorry, I said it differently. When I was here before, we measured these stats, and one of the things we came up with was that about 60% of the usage of this facility is Valley residents who are paying zero taxes for this facility. And I think what it does is it provides kind of a background by which you then can go to the regional board and say, you know what, we've got a lot of electoral people using the facility and maybe they should be helping out in some of the programming and the operations of the building. So that lays the foundation for that particular series of discussions. So I think all in all, the reports there, the rec manager thinks it's a good idea. I think it'll be used, but we'll see by how much people use it and attend the facility.
Yeah, I was, for me, of course, I mean, I look at it as it's great to be open more because I don't support the Monday, Wednesday, Friday routine. However, I also believe if we're going to have more money spent, we have to have the measurement put in place to see if we're actually recovering some of that cost. Because the whole idea, of course, is to mitigate that with still being able to serve the public. Regretfully, I didn't see anything showing in here that X amount of people that have come into the Kelsey Center have recommended that we open Saturdays and that we'd use it. And I think personally that the rec manager needs to, when bringing forth stuff to council, should have a better understanding on possible use. I mean, it's great to be able to say this is what we're going to spend, but what are we bringing back? And if nobody else, if you're not measuring that by people coming in and saying, excuse me, would you use this if it was open this day? Would you use it when it's open this day? And tracking that and formulating from all the customers that come into your business, it's hard to measure. The only way it's going to be measured is by spending the money, doing the programs, and seeing if it's a success or not under the current what I see. Councillor Tinsley, do you have anything to add?
I think it's a good test venture as is, with the monies coming out of the COVID restart. So, I mean, that's what it's for, is to restart in some areas. I'm not sure when the last time the center was open on a Saturday, but some of the just basic logic says that the vast majority of people, particularly people with children and events, are going to roll around Saturdays. So I think there's a good chance of it proving some success if the tracking's there on who's using it. So I think it's a great plan, and see how it goes. It's only till December, and then it's reassessed in December. And certainly the numbers will tell at that time, right? That's my thoughts.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Thank you.
I think that it's a staffing issue and that we shouldn't be trying to advise them on what they should be doing, that they should be advising us on what the staff has done and where they can come back with the stats to recommend whether it should stay open or be open on Saturday and Sunday. But I think the rec manager has to start somewhere, and she is fairly new, and I think she should take the guidance from the acting CAO.
Okay, but just to be, I'm not sure I fully understood, just to be clear, it is council's responsibility to the Kelsey Center. The CAO is the one who directly communicates with the staff of the Kelsey Center, but it is council's part of their responsibility to make sure that we are mitigating whatever loss we can and protecting the taxpayer. So I guess we need a resolution, folks. So recommend a resolution that council receive, discuss, and provide staff with direction on the Kelsey Center schedule, and that council approves the opening of the Kelsey Center for 5 hours on Saturdays until December 31st, 2022, where just a small amendment to that, where council will receive all the stats or a P&L on that X amount of months. Report back to council on the success or failure.
Part of the discussion is that we're going to get into a larger report as part of the budget process.
Understood.
That has to come in November or December. So that will be going to the larger issue of if in fact we've got the sufficient staff, lifeguarding staff, going to that weekend shift that you're talking about. I believe it was Tuesday through Sunday was the new schedule they're proposing. And that sort of matches your Councillor Tinsley's thoughts about being open on the weekend. So having said that, we hope to have the usage stats by then. That'll be part of that report. Part of that report will report back on the stats for this program.
Okay, that's what I think we need to see.
So it's part of that process. So if you want to put in a resolution, that's fine, but
Not necessary.
certainly that's part of the
Okay.
work plan.
As long as it's distinguished, so we can see that a new program has been implemented. Is it successful? Is it not? How many people are attending and so on and so forth? And not just wrap it into the other 4 days a week or 3 days a week that they have. I'd like to see the breakdown on that particular day as well, because it is something that they're adding. So I think it's important that we have something that we can see to measure it by. That just messed up that whole resolution, didn't it? Okay, so we'll just say that the council approves the opening of the Kelsey Center for 5 hours on Saturdays until December 31st, 2022. Do I have a motion, please?
Can I, sorry,
I'll move that. Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
I'll second it.
Do you want to wait? Thank you. Discussion. Councillor Tinsley?
I just wanted to add, in relation to this, it also in bold there in the middle of the discussion area, if we choose this option, which we're choosing, they recommend we add a motion, so I guess we can do that after this, be made to transfer monies from the COVID reserves, reserve fund, right? Restart reserve. So we can do that as a separate motion, I guess.
Right here. Yeah. Okay, we'll do that as a separate motion.
Okay, just wanted to get that covered.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So do we have all in favor?
Yep.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion is carried. Another recommended resolution that if council chooses this option, which we have, staff recommends a motion to be made to transfer the monies from the COVID Restart Reserve Fund. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Second? Discussion, CAO? 4K. Oh, sorry. Let's do a little, I forgot the 4,000. COVID restart at $4,000. Let's try that again. Motion, please. Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion. I think that's ship is it. Sorry, Councillor Polson.
Yes, thank you. I wonder if also staff could look at other ways of getting funding. For instance, looking for a corporate sponsor or advertising that local people could sponsor a day to have the pool open. Secret Santa may have enough funds to open the pool and pay for the pool to be open for one day for a family event. So that would mitigate expenses also. And it would serve the whole community rather than just the, not just, but the people that do receive things from the Secret Santa donations.
I don't think, I agree, but I don't think that has to be part of the resolution. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, we're just talking about discussion, right?
Yeah.
So I'm talking
Yeah, we're discussing the
Talking about
resolution.
funding. Yeah.
Okay. Opposed? Hearing none. Motion is carried. Okay, and that we, but when you're referring to staff, you're referring to the rec manager staff, correct? Michelle? I mean, generally, they're the ones that are looking for grants and, okay. So we'll have her, and that could just be passed on from CAO to her, correct?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, number 12, Emergency Services, Public Work, Recreation Department reports. None. Bylaw. Council remuneration bylaw 490-2022, recommended resolution. That bylaw 490-2022 be given first, second, and third reading. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion. Thank you. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried. Number 14, new business. There is no new business. And public question period, a maximum of 15 minutes with some flexibility. The purpose of the question period is to enable citizens to ask questions about issues that are important to the citizen asking the question. Speakers are asked to limit their questions to one each. If time permits, everyone has the opportunity to ask a second question. Speakers may ask a second question. I do that every time. You notice that? Every time. Citizens will be asked to state their name and address. Hello, crowd. Anybody? Sure, come on up to the microphone, please. State your name, address.
Mary Malinsky, 431 McMillan Drive. Just a couple of comments on the Kelsey Center that you pointed out. One of the things in the staff report is that the overage can be covered by other line items that have been underspent. So that was not.
Yeah, in my opinion, if the other line items are underspent, that's a good way to mitigate some of those losses and savings. But I don't believe it should be free for all because we underspent somewhere else to spend that money just because we underspent. If we can save the taxpayers some money at the end and not run it, as much as a deficit as we are running, that's how I believe. So just because we saved a little bit here doesn't mean we should be able to, in my opinion, spend it all.
Right. And my other comment regarding the Kelsey Center is you mentioned you wanted to see stats from people who are already using the center about whether they would be available to open or would be willing to come on days that are not currently open. I
know where you're going.
I currently don't use the Kelsey Center because it is open when I am not available to be here. So I wouldn't be able to comment that I would use it on a Saturday
Correct.
because I haven't been in here on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I think there is a potential for people in the community who may use it on the weekend who haven't been in on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So that
Agreed.
number would not be
Accurate.
seen. Yes,
Agreed.
thank you.
Anyone else?
David Malinsky, 431 McMillan Drive. I have a couple of comments that were not entered from earlier items on the agenda and a final note of your final motion that's on the agenda. If I may, regarding the check-in petition, the call is for 3 samples. May I also recommend that you include whether the community has had a positive or negative response with those chicken regulations, and some feedback that may have existed. I don't know if that's possible to add on there, but I think that would be smart. Regarding the dress code, I have to question what is inappropriate dress, and I would also have to allow for consideration of responses. Myself, I'm going to be, I've already signed up for volunteer fire department, and I'm not saying that I may have to be coming here directly from an incident, but if that were to happen, I don't think I'd necessarily have enough time to make myself completely presentable, and yet still the conscious value is valuable. So perhaps a variance. Your Kelsey Center comments. My only comment was, what's the promotion or advertising plan? Your intention is to increase those hours. How is the plan going for informing the rest of the community about all that? Finally, on page 3, you're about to include a new 91K negotiation. So on through that, just before number 17, adjournment. The last word on line 3 is help, and I believe that it's meant to be help. Thank you.
So you pointed out a typing mistake.
I just
Is
wanna-
that what you're telling me?
If you're about to enter that into bylaw, I think it's kind of important.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from anyone on council?
Um,
No?
Can I speak? Yes, can
Councillor
I?
Tinsley?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea. There should be, in whatever comes forward as the dress code part of a code of conduct. There should be an allowance for exceptions for unusual circumstances. I think that's reasonable, whatever the circumstance is.
Yeah, and that's generally something that the mayor and the CAO would go through at the time. Quite frankly, if you got home from work at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you were too lazy to change, that's not a good enough excuse,
Yeah, correct. Yeah, but something.
as far as I'm concerned.
If I'm coming back
So-
from a fire response at
If you're,
6:30,
that's circumstances, right? Circumstances. But quite frankly, I think that all of council that we have here shows that respect in part to the public on the way you present yourself when you do come to a meeting. There's always circumstances. Perhaps, somebody got in a car accident, whatever else on the way here, ran over a chicken, the whole thing happened. Right? I mean, those chickens are going to be everywhere. I'm just kidding, but they might be if we don't tighten that up. But there's always something that is reasonable, right? Is reasonable. Okay. CAO,
But you should wear your hat, right? If you're coming to a council meeting from a fire.
how do you like my hand?
Be
no,
very, very
no,
impressive.
then you wear the actual turnout gear
Okay.
to come. You don't just slap on a baseball cap and go from there.
You mentioned this, how are we going to get the plan out to the public? Things like this are usually advertised on our website, as well as, I believe, in one of the Facebook pages
A
that we
roundtable.
let people know what changes are coming about and hours of operation,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
I could just include then maybe the printed Sabre news.
Yep.
I know that, I don't know if that's on cost.
No, I mean, all that is, any programs that are done at the Kelsey Center, that's what they already do. They already use those, so they're not new avenues for them. They always put them on Facebook and they always put it in the,
I've seen those
there it is.
electronic ones. How does that seem?
yeah, there's a calendar in the Sabre newsletter that, yeah, that defines what day and what programs.
They may want to put an extra amount of effort for just this change, because it is a change.
Understood. Okay. Anybody else? We're good? Okay, in accordance with section 92 of the community charter, this council meeting will be closed to the public in order for the council may be given considerations to matter of accordance with the following community charter, which is 90-1C and 90-1E and 90-1K.
Just the first one and the one you've got here.
Oh, sorry, 90-1C and 90-1K. It's all close. Okay, do I have a motion, please? Second,
I'll second that.
discussion? Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried. Number 17, we are adjourned.